Ken, how are you feeling today?
How am I feeling today? What a loaded question.
It is.
In actual fact, I feel real good. I feel real good today. I feel grateful that I'm here. I'm grateful that you asked me to be on the show. So overall, I would say feeling really good, cool in here as
Very cool.
opposed to outside, which is very warm.
Huge contrast.
Yeah, huge contrast. But yeah, good. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Great. I'm going to jump right into the, how do you say?
The nitty gritty.
The nitty gritty.
Okay.
And you're all about mindset.
Yeah.
So this is something you're playing home with. If we can go back a little bit, what is mindset?
What is mindset? The way I like to describe mindset, because I like to make things as simple as possible. The way I like to describe mindset is simply this. It's the way that you are predominantly thinking most of the time.
Okay.
If there's a really simple way. So, ironically, or whatever you want to call it, I mean, 90% of the thoughts that you had yesterday, you had them again today. 90% of those thoughts. And you'll have them again tomorrow. It's the research has shown this. And so essentially you're thinking many of the same thoughts over and over.
For better or worse.
Some are good. Some,
Okay.
let's say some are resourceful.
Yeah.
Some maybe not so resourceful.
Mm.
So it really depends predominantly what you're thinking. And what you're predominantly thinking about, a lot of time has to do a lot with beliefs, has to do a lot with perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
They come into it very much so. How you're viewing the world. So that's the way I look at mindset is, how you are predominantly thinking. And most people aren't even aware because a lot of those thoughts, they are happening through habit and they're unconscious thoughts.
You remind me of the concept. There's a Maltese saying that goes like, show me the people that you surround yourself with, and I can perceive what kind of person you are. So it is very much what happens inside of us, inside our brain. So I think it was simple enough to understand what
Ma
mindset
min
is.
rajtek xebbaħtek.
Yes, there's that one and there's another one.
Okay.
Għajli ma minn tamela u ngħidlek xint.
Yes,
So
yes,
there's
yes,
two sides.
Yeah.
Essentially mean the same thing.
Yes.
And the way you describe mindset to me is very similar to those. So the types of thoughts you have will make up your behavior. So what comes out of what goes in your mind comes out
Absolutely.
as behavior.
Absolutely. And if I could maybe describe that a little bit differently, and this is what marvels me about mindset, because to me it's all about the fact that you have an element of control over your world. You see, the majority of people are thinking that the outside world that they're seeing is what is affecting them. And this is why they're like this. Yet what they're not realizing is you actually have control. You actually are affecting your outside world with the way you are thinking. So the world that you see around you, the world that you describe as your outside world, is a reflection of your inner world. It's a reflection of the way you are thinking. And this can sometimes be a very hard pill to swallow for people, because it's very easy to say, but wait a second, I'm like this because, I don't know, my dad did this to me. My boss treats me like this. My cousins did this to me, or I had a really good friend and he did this to me, and this is why I'm like this. This is why I'm in this state. Now, I'm not saying that those circumstances didn't happen. You had a part in it. You had a part in those circumstances actually coming into play by the way you are thinking, by the way that what you believe. Like if you believe, it's interesting. Sometimes I hear people say, life got in the way. That's the way life is, right? Let's take a real simple, something that people can really relate to.
Yes, let's put it
Okay,
into
let's
practice.
something that people can really relate to. Has anybody heard, people listening here, life is hard. Is it? Is life hard? Now,
It's a difficult question to answer
right?
because we're dealt different cards. Um, I believe we are dealt different cards, so we don't choose the place that we're born in. We can later on in
Well,
life.
that's a whole different discussion, huh?
Yes.
Maybe you do choose where you were born.
No, I don't think so.
I will go. I will even go as far as saying, you actually choose your parents
How?
from the
This is
spirit,
interesting.
spiritually. From a see, because this we're really gonna go in. We're gonna go into
No,
this.
this is uncharted
We might
territory
go
for me.
into some uncharted territory. I'm gonna put out a
Okay.
warning out there right now for those of you who are listening.
This is getting spooky.
Now,
all of a
if it
sudden.
if it doesn't resonate with you, or maybe this seems a little bit out there, that's okay. Just listen with an open mind and with a sense of humor, okay? Always. Because sometimes we take things too seriously. So spirit or soul or whatever you want to call it, it's simply energy.
Mhm.
Energy never dies, energy never finishes. And this is one of the things when it comes to mindset as well, is that here in the world we're so focused on the physical.
Mhm.
We give very much importance to the physical aspect of our lives. And I get it, and rightly so. We are in the physical. The thing is, part of us is still non-physical. Our spirit, our soul, our essence. It never dies. Even when we finish here physically, it doesn't die.
So
We keep going.
how do we know it exists?
How do we know
How
it
do we know
exists?
the spirit exists?
I can't give you proof. I can't give you 100% proof.
So if we don't
But
know
we
how
can.
it exists,
Yeah, well, I get it. I get it. We don't know.
I mean, the
well,
devil's
what's
advocate
faith?
here. Faith, I think faith I can describe it because it's something that I believe in.
Yeah,
So it's a
can
belief
you see
system.
it? Can you see what you believe in all the time?
No.
Same thing. This
It's,
is
okay. So
now.
we're mixing religious faith.
So I'm not. Not religious faith. I'm not even talking about religious faith. I'm not talking. There could be.
If I see I have faith in you, I trust you that you're going to do a good job.
Okay.
I have faith in you.
Yeah.
But if I believe that there's some divinity or deity that is omnipotent and overarching, that's something else to
Yes,
me.
but we also have over the years. I mean, we've had sages for thousands of years who have spoken about this. We've had and there's tons of science now that is also confirming this. And I'm not talking science recent only. Like we know that, for instance, there was, I believe it was, a Japanese guy, Moto, I think it was, who did experiments on water.
Okay.
Simply on water and how the makeup of water, simply by the words we use to the water. So if we get very angry at the water, they've tested, it actually changes the molecular structure.
Really?
We
Okay.
talk about love with the water, it changes the molecular structure. So this is all stuff that's unseen, yet we know scientifically that this is proven. Like it's proven. Now, that's why I said it's a little bit out there, and this is just from the learnings that I've been learning over the course of years and years. You know, our soul, our spirit, our essence, who we truly are, it's all in one and the same. Each and every one of us, each and every one of us, and essentially, it is actually pure love. It's joy. The essence of each and every one of us, who we truly are, actually is that joy, that happiness. So coming back to, is life hard? It boils down to a belief.
Wait, coming back to how we choose our parents, that's the part I'm curious.
Okay, yeah.
That's the part
So
I'm
at a
curious
spirit
about.
level, it never dies. So coming into this world, you're coming into this world for various lessons, whatever it is that you're going to learn. So you choose your parents, and when I say choose your parents, it's not just parents. Really and truly, you can have a spiritual encounter, and you do every single day with people you bump into every single day, because nothing happens for nothing. Nothing happens coincidentally. By the way, coincidence is where two things actually merge. It's not by chance. It actually happens. So you could just, have you ever had, and I was just talking about this with someone else. Have you ever had an instance where you were somewhere, I don't know, in a shop, and a child was running, and they came and they bumped into you?
Yes.
That potentially is and maybe there was even a slight connection for that minute, you know, you looked in the kid's eyes or whatever. That's actually a spiritual connection, and that didn't happen by coincidence, right? So to think that, and this is the way I see it. And again, I'm giving you some of my opinions, and from stuff that I've learned, and you know, in my opinion, you know, these encounters that we have, every single moment is really like a spiritual moment. We have an opportunity to the way we're dealing with people, the way we are looking at the world, and this is why I wanted to come to. So yeah, it's out there. I know it's out there, but we choose because we've decided, you know what, I'm going to have these parents because, and some people, and I know some people right now are listening going, there is no friggin' way I would have chose the parents that I chose because they've given me a heart. Some people have gone through traumatic stuff.
Most definitely.
The thing is though, and this is the beauty of it, you chose those people to teach you certain lessons. Potentially they've given you a huge lesson in how you do not want to be, and how you are going to be completely different with your children. Which brings us, to how everything is always working out in perfect harmony amongst the chaos. It's still perfect. Everything is always working out for you, even when it appears not to be. The only reason it appears not to be is because you don't have the full picture, because you're not omnipotent. You can't have the full picture. You don't know the full picture because you can't see what's down the road. And we can even look at instances in our own lives where we go, wow, I'm really glad that happened, even though at the time it seemed like a really bad thing. But because of that, this and this and this and this and all of these wonderful things have happened, and now I'm here.
But I wouldn't say that you go in deliberately. So let's stick with the parents.
Yeah,
thing.
okay.
I wouldn't go.
You like this one?
Yes. Because I think the listeners are intrigued by this as well. I wouldn't go as far to say that I chose my parents. I don't feel I had that control. But I agree with you on the fact that we decide what to make up, that whether they teach us something or not, we learn something. So
Yes.
for example, in my case, my father taught me a lot by not teaching me anything in the grand scheme of things.
Yes.
So
You had to learn.
I had to learn myself.
Yeah.
But I've watched, I observed. So he didn't sit down with me and say, "Listen, Daniel, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
This is how you treat food. This is how you do it." He didn't do that. So I had to learn my things myself. So I can be, and this is where we agree, I believe. I could be, what's the word? I'm trying to find the word. I can be angry at my father for not showing me. I can be resentful. That's the word.
Yeah.
I can be resentful, or at least I chose, by him not teaching me directly how to do it, he taught me something. So there's the perception. That is my choice.
Yes,
and
absolutely. And you always have a choice.
That's I believe it's my choice, but I didn't choose him as my father.
Yeah. Well, okay. And I'm not going to tell you that.
No,
I'm
for
not going to say to you that, you know, I know for sure that you did. Yet, at the same time, you don't know that you didn't.
Yeah, that is true.
Right?
That is true.
And we'll leave it at that because I know it really goes out there. Oh my God, I could go into, you know what, this whole world is an illusion. But again, but anyways, we'll leave it at that. But this is really interesting that you're saying because it's about choice.
Yes.
So it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And this is why I'm saying, even when it comes to the question, is life hard?
Yes.
So most people will tell you, yes, it is. And understandably so. Because, let's say, experience has shown them that. But also what has happened there as well is, and this is why I'm saying you have control, there is an element of control that you have on your outer world. If you were brought up being taught that life is hard, that you can't have everything, that, be realistic, and all of these, and you're taught that. So what is a belief? A belief is a thought that you have thought over and over and over and over and over and over until it becomes a belief. So if you've been told all your life that from a very young age, and with the greatest of intentions, don't get me wrong, because your parents, if we're going to talk about parents, that's what they were taught. And their parents, that's what they were taught. Life is hard, life is hard, life is hard, life is hard. And if you've heard that over and over again, you're going to believe that life is hard. So if life is hard to you, if you believe it, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Because your outside world, the way your mind wants to look at the outside world, is going to look for justification of your belief.
Yes.
And then you're going to go, you see, look what happened. I was right.
The brain is very clever.
Yeah. You know, it's just like a guy saying, listen, there are no good women in the world. There's no good women left in the world. And a woman saying there's no good men left in the world. Well, she's going to find the man, or he's going to find the girl that's going to justify his belief. And he's going to go, you see? You see? I was right. There's no good women left in the world. And it's the same thing in the entrepreneurial world.
Definitely.
And this is one of my biggest pet peeves to me is this. Because if you attend most entrepreneurial events or sit down and even having these conversations with entrepreneurs, you're going to hear about some really difficult stories, some really difficult times. And I get it. And we all go through some of those times. I get it. The thing is this, that if from a very early stage as an entrepreneur, so coming into the entrepreneurial world, you've been taught, whether it's through books, whether it's through attending events, listening to mentors, that listen, coming into the entrepreneurial world, have the expectation that it's going to be difficult. Be ready, be prepared. Be prepared that you need to sacrifice. Be prepared that you're going to be stressed out. Be prepared that you're going to suffer. And you hear this often enough.
The internet is flooded with that kind of...
I know it is. This is my pet peeve. It's going to become your belief. And if it's going to become your belief, and not only that, all of these things now, we are equating them with success. For you to be successful, you need to have you need to have gone through the sacrifices, the stress, the struggle, the suffering.
Because if you're not, it means that you're not successful.
Exactly. If you're not, you're not going to be successful. So now, as an entrepreneur, I think that I have to go through those things to be successful. And this is where many entrepreneurs sometimes actually self-sabotage themselves. Why? Because as they're going through their process and things become a little bit easier, potentially, and they're getting into a groove, they're actually going, this is a little bit too easy. I'm supposed to be suffering. I'm supposed to be sacrificing. And now they're looking for something to sabotage themselves so that it's suffering. Right? Even recently, I've been hearing about, when we talk about balance, a lot of entrepreneurs seem to have this challenge with balance, and they think that they have to be going 100% all of the time.
Yes. Recently, I've completed, so I've been coaching, so my business endeavor, I've been coaching for a little over than a year now. And recently I did a coaching course specifically on talents and skills called the Clifton Strengths from Gallup. And it ties in with what you're saying, because if we operate using our talents, the things that come natural to us, that's those things that when people ask you, how did you manage to do it? And say, it came natural to me. Those are your raw talents. If we learn to operate by those, so this is like the focusing on your weaknesses so that they become strengths, or focusing on your strengths so that you can maximize on them.
Absolutely.
This goes with the latter philosophy. And so if we operate by maximizing our own talents, things tend to be easier, as you're saying. So if we have a business, for example, and most of my clients are companies, and I do have some individuals, but mostly are organizations and who provide coaching to their employees.
Yep.
Most businesses, if you have a business, or I have my own personal business, I'm doing coaching, I'm working in organizational psychology because that comes natural to me. And I'm good at it because it comes natural to me. And I can't do therapy, for example.
Yeah, it's just like we were talking before. Just what we were talking about before about the editing and the stuff, right? So, like, I naturally can talk and speak to people and work with people and have no like, but don't tell me to sit down and edit something for like hours because I that's it's not my forte. It's not my, and not only that, where you put your energy, this is where you start to increase more of that energy. Because where your focus goes is where your energy flows.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same, it's exactly like you're saying, it's the same thing. It's focus on your strengths. Focus on what you're good at. Rather than being so concerned about what you're not good at, get other people to do that.
Yes.
Surround yourself with other people who can do that. Now I understand there's some stuff that maybe you still need to delve into that maybe you won't be phenomenal at, but there's a time for that, and then there's potentially a time to let that go and delegate it. Yet when it comes back to the beliefs, like, it's so vital, because what if business, what if your entrepreneurship could be fun? Like, I really believe that so many business people have taken the fun out of business. Like, it's no longer fun. It becomes a chore. And 99.9% of the time when it first started, it was for the joy of it.
For sure.
It was for the joy of it. They really used to enjoy it and all these things. And yes, I know it starts to get maybe sometimes a little more complicated because now, we're looking at all kinds of different things and budgets and blah, 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 and all this. But what is the sense of actually having a business or anything in life
if you're not enjoying it?
That if you're not enjoying it?
And what would be your suggestion? So if you have someone, you're a mindset consultant, and you have someone in front of you who's exhibiting this kind of, or sharing this kind of issue, what would be your suggestion to them?
Well, there'll be a number of things. I would find out why they're doing the business that they're doing. What was the original intention behind the business? I think what is very important to look at as well, and is essential for any entrepreneur to look at in the very beginning of their business, is to look at their values and what's important to them. Because if fun is an important aspect of is a value, fun is a value, right? So if fun is an important value to you and has always been an important value to you, then you're going to want to implement it in anything in your life, including your business. If honesty, integrity, all of these values, looking at these values and seeing what's being authentic, being true to yourself. How many business people have gone down a road where they don't even feel like they can act like themselves anymore? They have to dress in a certain way, they need to talk in a certain way, they need to be driving a certain car, they need to be on all these things that are all facades, denying them actually being authentic to themselves. And when you start to move yourself away from this authenticity of who you truly are, things become incongruent. And this is where the stress starts. Because now you're doing things, you're taking action on things that you really don't even want to be doing. So we really got to go back, if I'm going to work with someone, and say, okay, so what are your core values? What are the values you truly want to align with? Are you aligning with these values in your business? Why do you want to be doing the business that you're doing? Because if you're doing your business simply transactional, if it's just about making the profit and all that, not saying that that's not important, because if a business is going to survive, it needs to make a profit. That's another thing that sometimes people will go to this other extreme, right? Where money's not important. No, money is still important. Yes. Like, we wouldn't be doing a podcast if money wasn't involved in it, because you need stuff, you need equipment, you need time, it's still important. And think about it this way as well, from a mindset perspective. If you're always saying, and people do this, right? They don't even realize, they say, oh, money's not important. Money's not important. Money's not important. What's the belief? Money's not important. How do you expect to receive money if money's not important to you? How long could you say to people, my girlfriend's not important, My girlfriend's not important. Until your girlfriend goes, like, dude, if I'm not important, see you later.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing. Because what you're transmitting out into the universe, out into the world, is what you're going to get back.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to look at that balance and decide, okay, so what are the values? Why are you doing this business? What was the original reason you started the business? Well, I originally started this business because I had a real passion for, I don't know, sneakers. And you know, I really love the fact that I could you know, get a great pair of sneakers and sell them to people so that they could be comfortable, so they could really enjoy whatever. So now we're talking about, okay, so you wanted to have an impact. You wanted to have some sort, okay, is that still there? Or have you lost that? Or have you lost that joy? And ultimately, and this is, you know, where I want to bring people to understand, is that it really is about the joy of the whole process. Mm-hmm. It's insignificant. It's really outside of, you know, what are the words I want to use here? It's really, it doesn't make sense to be on a journey that you're not enjoying.
Yes. 100%.
It's just not, it doesn't make sense whatsoever, because in the bigger scheme of things, you're going to get to, you know, the person's going to get to the end of their life, and they're still going to die. They're still going to be going, what was this for? What was this all for? What was I doing all this for? Supposedly to reach some destination and then potentially be happy, when that's never going to happen.
I think the key word here is change, because it's a very broad term. I'll explain myself. Because when an entrepreneur starts a business, and this is what I see with my clients, is that when an entrepreneur starts a business, 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, they're in 10 years, in 15 years, their role in the business changed. And if they're not changing alongside the business and the business's priorities, they either outgrow the business themselves, mm-hmm. or the business outgrows them. Mm-hmm. So they might not be the right person now to manage the business.
Yeah.
And it's a very difficult decision, because even if you're the founder, you might be part of the board, for example, or the executive body, or become just a stakeholder or a mm-hmm. shareholder for that matter. So your role has to change depending on the energy, and you might have to leave the baton to someone else mm-hmm. at that point in time. It's a very difficult position. So either you change alongside the business, or else you will be outdated. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because sometimes you might have done something for 10, 15 years and it doesn't fill you up with joy anymore.
Well, yeah, and so this is really interesting, and I'll tell you, really interesting. There's two things here I want to touch upon, because you said it doesn't really give you joy anymore. So you want to look at that and want to see why it doesn't give you joy anymore. Mm-hmm. And essentially, the reason it doesn't give you joy anymore, for more often than not, is again what we were talking about, is many entrepreneurs and individuals are seeking external validation, right? So the joy when they started the business was to get to the first milestone or whatever it is, right? And you get to the milestone, and that's awesome, and it's fantastic, and you feel really good for a few minutes, or a few hours, or a few days, maybe a month. But then it's like, okay, so what's next? And again, so now there's a new milestone, and which is wonderful, which is great. There's the ambition you want to get. The thing is this, it's always external. It's no different than an addiction. So it's always going to need to be bigger the next time around. And so you're seeking gratification externally, always, always. And it's never going to satisfy you. So that's why then the passion sort of gets lost, like, because, okay, yeah, I made my first million.
Yeah.
Great, fantastic. Oh yeah, so what? I made it the second million. Okay, whatever. Like, it's external. It's constant, and this is why. Then this is why it's the internal gratification. This is where the mindset work goes as well, because there's internal work. Because when you are internally at peace, it's irrelevant of what's happening externally. You're not depending on the external for the gratification. And this where this ties in as well with what you were saying about people being able to let go of certain positions and stuff like that. Many times this is about identity.
Yes.
It's identity. They're not really to get let go because they feel like they're letting go a piece of their identity.
That's true.
Right? You're telling me to let go of something I've been a part of for 20 years. It's been a part of my life for 20 years. This is my like,
It's me.
Now, to be able to do that, but that's how they frame it. It's them. And this is why it's so vital. And again, get ready, listeners, because I'm going to go out on a bit of an extreme here. It's important to learn how to detach yourself from anything that is of this world. So that means detaching yourself from your business, detaching yourself from your partner, detaching yourself from your children, detaching yourself from anything that's of this world. What do I mean by that? This does not mean that you don't love your children, that you don't have compassion for your children, that you don't love your partner, that you don't do things with your partner. Absolutely. But when I say detach, it means literally detach, that your happiness, your joy in life does not depend on anybody else or anything external of you. And this is a bit of a challenge because, we think, and again, how we're taught and how we're brought up. Like I've said this before as well. I mean, how many greeting cards have we seen how, something says, "You complete me." Really? So your partner completes you? You're not complete already on your own?
My better half.
Yeah, my better half.
Yes.
Right? And I get it. But your partner, no one completes you. No business completes you. No, beautiful car completes you. No beautiful home completes you. None of these things complete you. You are already complete. Yet, because we're seeking that external gratification, whether it's through our business, whether it's through your partner, whether it's through all these wonderful physical stuff. Don't get me wrong. Like, I like the physical stuff without a doubt. That's why I said, yeah, money is important. It's a physical thing. Yet those are all byproducts.
Yes.
And
you have a video that I think I've heard you say this.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Yeah. Who said it.
Yeah.
So you said that you don't complete me, but you complement me.
Yeah, you compliment
And I agree
me.
with that.
Yeah.
And same goes for businesses. So it's the business or the person or whatever we're doing, they complement us and we complement them.
Yeah.
So I think it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. And why do I insist on this detachment? Why do I believe in this detachment so much? So again, it's you who brings joy to yourself, nobody else. It's a choice. But why is this detachment so important? Because all of these things that I'm mentioning that are outside of you could be gone in a flash. We've seen businesses disappear overnight. We've seen partners disappear overnight. We've seen someone, and again, not that we would wish this for anybody, but and I'll use myself. I could walk out of here and drop dead. They're gone from this physical world. So if that happens, does that mean that you can never be happy again? Now, don't get me wrong. I understand there's the grief period and there's all of these things that you go through. Yet, your happiness does not revolve around that other person.
So what is your process when it comes to grief? Because I was going to touch upon that. But how would you go about it?
How would I go about grieving? I think everybody, we go through certain processes, and there's the 5 different levels.
Yes,
we go through the denial and the anger and all of these things, and we're going to go through those. And I think each individual will go through them in their way. In their way. The way I look at it is this: like when it comes to people, if I'm going to grieve, because people can go, and let's make it clear, like an entrepreneur can go through a grieving process when they've lost a business.
Definitely.
I've done it.
Definitely.
I've done it personally. I had opened a retail shop, was doing really well many years ago, and then at some point I had to let it go. It was really like letting go. It took me a while. I held on to this business
What
probably
went wrong, if I may ask?
What went wrong? Oh my God. Nothing went wrong the way I frame it nowadays. It all worked out beautifully. I learned a lot of lessons. What went wrong? So, okay, let me give you a little bit of backstory. So the first retail shop I opened in August 2000, which was a souvenir shop. August 2000. And I knew from day one, like I did a bit of scouting and I knew there was good passing trade, but I knew from day one that the shop was going to do very well. How did I know from day one? Because I wasn't even open. I was still putting things in place. I just had postcard racks outside the shop. And in this one day, and I remember to this day, so I'm taking you back. We were still using Maltese lira, but I sold 85 Maltese lira worth of postcards in this one day. So that's about 200 euros worth of postcards in one day. Postcards being sold at 24 cents euros and 12 cents euros.
Okay.
I said, okay, we're going to do well. And I did really well. I had a really good year. 2001, we had Twin Towers. And things changed. Tourism changed. And I say this all the time. I say, listen, I would have never wished for this to happen. But I did look up to the sky and say, could you have at least given me 5 years? Right? Not just 1 year. Anyways, from there, it sort of took a bit of a nosedive. I stuck it out. I stuck it out for another 5 years. But the last 2 years, I was really holding on. Like I had opened a couple of more shops as well, but I still didn't get to the point where, and looking back, I probably was undercapitalized at that point. So I stretched myself, and then I ended up, I was robbing Peter to pay Paul. So one shop would be doing good, the other one wouldn't be doing so great, and I'm keeping cash flow going and trying to keep employees. Anyways, long story short, I held on to the shop probably for about 2 extra years that I didn't need to. The numbers just didn't start to make sense anymore. There was dwindling numbers in tourism. For whatever reasons, probably there was some stuff that maybe I could have done that I didn't do at the time.
Okay. What would be those?
What would those be now? I'm not 100% certain, because then I got out of retail and I really didn't look back at retail anymore. So I would never, by far would I say that I was some sort of retail expert or anything like that, but it just numbers, like in the area where I was, a hotel came down. So I had a hotel very close to me at the time. It came down, it was demolished and changed into apartments. While then another one was being built, but there was that time gap, right? I remember at one point in time, I had a gutter, right, being dug right in front of my shop at one time. There's all kinds of stuff that it didn't lend to it. And it was time. It was its time, and that's okay. And I learned a lot from it. Mm-hmm. So I've gone through those, and I understand those processes of challenges as an entrepreneur. Yet, ultimately, you learn from those. You either learn from those and you decide, okay, how am I going to move forward from here? Mm-hmm. And this is where, and during this time, I was delving into mindset already. I had started. And it helped me to get through a lot of it. Because the grief, it's an entrepreneur can grieve. Yeah. Like you said, we were talking about grieving and how do we go through those process and being a detachment. So I specifically remember during that time, why did I hold on so tight? Why did I hold on for an extra 2 years with the shop rather than closing it? Because there was so much attachment. This was my first shop I opened. It was like my baby. You know how we do this in business, right? This is my baby. Yes. What are people going to think? I'm a failure. I have to close, and all these things. And I'm here to tell you, people aren't thinking about you. People don't really care in that sense.
The kind of nobody cares phenomenon going on at the moment.
Well, not nobody care in the sense nobody care. When I say nobody cares, not because people don't care. I think it's really important for people to care.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is that those people that you're thinking are thinking about you.
Not in the same way.
Are not thinking about you because they're the center of their own universe. Mm-hmm. And while you're thinking about what you think they're thinking about you, they're having dinner with their family, just enjoying their family, not thinking about you, man. They're not going, hey, Ken had to close his shop. Oh, he's a failure. No, they're not. They're not. But we say all of this crap to ourselves. Yes. And we start to, and this is what brings people down. Yet if I wasn't attached, and this is why detachment is so important, if I wasn't attached, and I just said, you know what? Okay, this was a time in my life. This happened. This was a circumstance that happened. Now, how do I move forward from here? What's the next best step? How can I move forward? Because in actual fact, I am successful already in my own right. Because I had the courage already to actually open this retail shop that a lot of people don't have the courage to do. Yeah, I had the courage to go for it and do this. I actually, there was a time during this period where I was very successful even financially. Things were going really, really well. Some things changed. And I'm here to tell you, and you already mentioned this thing about change, it's going to happen. It's the one thing that's always going to happen. Change is always going to happen. When you can detach yourself, because in the detachment, now you're not attaching your worthiness to how successful or not the business is. You begin to understand, and this is where I really work with entrepreneurs, is them to understand that their worthiness is never compromised. Never, ever, ever compromised, irrespective of the results that you're getting in your life. I don't care if you are living in a gutter, homeless, or whether you're living in a mansion and you're a billionaire. You're both on equal terms when it comes to worthiness, who you are.
It has a human level, that most definitely.
You're worthy. And what else would you want in your life? When you truly understand your worthiness, it's never compromised.
Going back a little bit, Ken, with regards to grief. Recently, I remember the quote, and I'm curious what you think about this, is the harder you love, the harder you grieve. So with that statement, it means that if you do not grieve, there's an underlying statement here, that if you do not grieve, you're not loving hard enough. That is the price to pay for loving, the grieving process.
I get what they're saying, and it's and up to a certain extent, it's true that you know, the deeper you're going to feel that grief, that just means that you really did
care, and
you care, and you love that person, and that's true. But you know, as humans, in actual fact, we don't even really comprehend what love really is.
Okay.
We don't. We use that word, but what real love is, and unconditional, we don't want to talk about unconditional love. And this is why I feel it's so important to understand about the spirit level as well, because we have so much grief. Why do we grieve so much? We grieve because we feel like we've lost something. And we have at a physical level. Our loved ones and all that, they're still with us at a spiritual level. We just need to look for them in different places and not look for them in the same places we've always looked for them before. So now I might look for it, I might look for a sign. So I'll give you an example. I'll give you a really good example of this. So not long ago, I was in my room, and I was just going through some really old papers that were my grandfather's.
Okay.
My grandfather's, and there were some business stuff. I was just getting some stuff in order. So I was finding some old licenses of my grandfather, like as in trading licenses. At the time we used to have, you know, and I was just going through and I was organizing these a bit, seeing what was necessary. And about 15, 20 minutes into this, in organizing these papers, I was listening to some music. It was a random playlist. And on comes My Delilah. And I know that my grandfather used to always walk around singing this song. So for me, that was just, and again, open mind here for those of you listening. For me, that was just a sign that him telling me, hey, I'm here with you. I can see what you're doing. You're going through these papers, right? And for us recognizing these signs in our lives, because they do give us some solace that, they're with us still. And it could be a song that comes on the radio. It could be, there's so many things that can happen. Like, so it's just being open to that and recognizing, and that will, for me, that definitely will help with the grief and the understanding that you haven't lost anything. They're probably actually with you more than they've ever been with you. Right? So, again, with the detachment, with the grief, when we really love someone, it's going to affect you. I mean, not long ago, I can even give you this, not long ago, 2 weeks ago, I think 2 weeks almost today. 2 weeks ago, I got a phone call from my mom in the morning. She called me. She fell. She was having a stroke. So, I'm off. I'm rushing home, getting the ambulance, going to the hospital. We're going to the hospital. She's in emergency. Her blood pressure is, I don't know what's going to happen when they go in and do a CT scan. I don't know what they're going to tell me. In that moment, I'm like, emotional. Yes, obviously. But then this is where the playing of the mindset and understanding, okay, this is a process that's happening. It's happening. Potentially can happen. Now, just so people know, she's had an amazing recovery.
Great.
Everything is almost back to normal, and just amazing. So, but in that moment, like, I don't even know. They're taking in her first. She could potentially not come out alive. I don't know. And yes, emotions going on, but I know, I at a profound level now, I know she's still going to be with me. Yes, in the physical level, things are going to change. Dealing with my dad and how that's going to happen, what's going to happen, yes. And even now, just talking about it, it can be very emotional, but I also know, and I think this is important for us to understand and people to prepare themselves for these moments as much as possible. Can you ever be prepared to lose a parent? Can you ever be 100% a parent be prepared to lose a child? But if we do start to delve into these things and understand that, and come to an understanding at least that, you know what, I know they're still going to be with me. I think it helps with the grieving process.
Okay.
It helps to get through the denial process very quickly because it is what it is. It's a fact. It's we're all going to go through this.
Ken, you're reminding me of a psychological concept. It's called desensitization. Have you ever heard about it?
I don't think so, but let's see where you're going with it.
Desensitization. I might be wrong at this, but I'm going to give it a shot. Desensitization is when we desensitize ourselves from what we're feeling. So if during this grieving process, we got stuck into a rabbit hole here.
It's okay.
But it's what we feel, because I can see there's a pattern in what you're saying, is that there's a high level of optimism in any kind of situation. So one could say that, could it be that is a form of desensitization, that we're trying to avoid the pain?
No, so I'm going to tell you right, I would never allow someone to just not feel that. Absolutely. No, I'm going to tell you to feel what you want to feel. Absolutely. What you're feeling.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely, you want to go through that. Like, even if someone's angry, it's okay. Like, I mean, it happens sometimes. Now, can we learn to actually reframe things and see something and see that, oh, do I really need to get angry about this? Because we've got to look at that as well.
Yes.
But if you're angry. And sometimes anger is necessary, for instance.
I think so too.
Because it's necessary in the sense of, a lot of people don't realize, like, what's the quickest way to bring someone out of a depression? Piss them off. Because anger is going to be a higher frequency than the shame or whatever they're feeling at that point. If I'll use it on purpose, because it's going to be a temporary sense of relief for that moment. Even when we want to lash out at someone and blame someone. Now, I'm not saying to do that, but when someone does that, all they're doing is feeling a sense of relief in that moment.
Yes.
Now, will it be long lasted? Probably not. But now we need to. Now, from anger, we want to take them up to a bit of courage.
Yes.
And then from courage, maybe move them up to hope.
Yeah.
Right? So I would never tell someone not to feel what they're feeling. What I would coach someone and help someone with is, and I think this is something that significantly changed in my life, because I could tend to get quite angry. nowadays I'm a lot calmer but I've been known to lose it in the past.
Thank God.
In the past. So what's significantly different for me nowadays in any particular situation is not that you got angry or you got upset about something or that you're depressed about something, or my question would be, how long would you like to stay there? And I think this is where mindset comes in, because you can start to reframe things and change the way you are looking at things so that you don't need to be staying there for 20 years. Something happened 20 years. People do this though.
They do.
20 years ago, something happened and you're still talking about it today. Dude, that happened 20 years ago.
They do.
Right? Or you have, it's just really interesting. Right now, I exaggerated 20 years ago, but it could
happens.
be. Yeah, it happens. It
I'm
happens.
not sure
Yeah.
it's an exaggeration.
No,
to be
it
honest.
happens. But also 5 years ago, someone's talking about. So I could talk about, yeah, because I went through that really difficult time when I had to close the shop. And we're talking. How long ago am I talking? 2006. So we're talking a while ago. Like, and this happened, and I lost money, and it was a real hard time for me. And I'm never gonna take on something like that again. And I'm talking about but this is where the mind plays games now. Yeah. Because the fact of the matter is, you're talking about it now. You're talking about your past now.
As if it was the present.
It is. You're making it the present. You're bringing up all the pictures. You're bringing up all the movies, and and to give those people who are listening a real clear example of this. Let's say you were take yourself back. You were having a really good time with a girl or a partner or whoever it was some time ago when you were a teenager. Mm-hmm. And you were somewhere and there was this particular song that played and this song comes on the radio, it can take you right back there immediately. Mm-hmm. Right? And you will feel all the emotions that you felt during that time as if it was happening now.
Music has that kind of magic.
Music can do that, absolutely. I for instance, when I smell freshly cut grass, it takes me right back to Canada when my dad used to cut the front lawn. Immediately, it just goes, just takes me there, and all those emotions. Now, what do many people do? They allow those anchors, those emotions to come up when they find themselves in a particular circumstance or situation. Mm-hmm. They haven't learned how to change those yet. How to realize that just because that happened then doesn't mean it's happening now. Sure. It's not happening now.
I can add something to the anger, because I think it was this week I was giving a workshop on emotional intelligence. And I bring the anger concept very frequently, because most people, I observe, at least from my experience, that people associate anger with something negative. Mm-hmm. I think there's a distinction between anger and rage. Mm-hmm. Rage is uncontrolled anger. To me, anger is a neutral emotion. It's neither good nor bad. I mean, it's what you decide to do with it, that's what makes it bad. I mean, happiness can be harmful in some ways, because if you're too happy in some...
Can you be too happy? Oh my God, this is interesting. Can you be too happy?
In the sense that if you're too... in psychology, there's this concept called mania.
Okay, yeah.
So you're in a frenzy. Mm-hmm. You're so happy, and this is sometimes induced by drugs.
Yeah, well,
so
okay.
If you're that kind of happy, that can be harmful to you. So
yeah, but that's okay. But it could be harmful to you. But again, if it's like even induced by drugs, so what does that do? So this is, and again, when it comes to drugs, for instance, what does drugs do? Basically, what it does is it bypasses. It allows you to eliminate your consciousness. Consciousness in the sense of it numbs what your everyday reality is. It allows you to go to the unconscious. Yeah. It takes you to a place where people can go in meditation. But the drugs do this. That's why we call it. That's why we call it a high.
Yeah.
And it truly is a high, because it feels. Oh, I almost used the F word. It feels really good.
It does.
Why do you think someone goes back to the drugs?
Because
it
feels
felt
good.
so great.
But would you say that it's a good thing to be super happy like that on a high?
If you could do it
Without
the drugs,
Yes.
and you can.
Through meditation?
You can.
All right.
You can go on
I
a
never
high.
tried it, so I can't say.
You could go on a high. I could imagine I have a joint right now and just go to that place if you want to. But you got to know how to do that. You want to put yourself in the state. You got to. This is the great thing about mindset and how you can actually learn to put yourself or allow someone else to put you to go into an altered state.
I think it's an extreme. If you're too excited, so aroused in terms of happy, I think you can do some irrational decisions. And let's say you're driving and you're excited to go to this interview to meet with someone. You're super excited. And you might drive recklessly because you're super excited. You're happy, but you might drive recklessly because of that. So that's what I meant by being too happy. Not
okay.
In that sense.
Potentially, but that's just you weren't paying attention. I mean, you just weren't paying. You weren't you weren't consciously, thinking about what you're doing. So let's differentiate between conscious and unconscious. So unconscious thoughts, which 95% of your actions throughout the day is through your unconscious thinking. You don't think about it. Most of the stuff you do throughout the day are habits.
Yes.
They're just habits. You get out of the same side of the bed every single day. You potentially drive to wherever you drive or take whatever transport you take in the same way every single day. Go through your morning routine in the same way every single day without even thinking about it. But if you actually had to think using the frontal cortex and actually think about it, so imagine you're going to wake up tomorrow morning, experiment with yourself. You're going to wake up tomorrow morning, but you're going to get out of the other side of the bed. Now, this could potentially mean you need to climb over someone, but anyways, but you're going to get out of the other side of the bed. I can guarantee you that you're going to have to think about it to do it. Otherwise, you're just going to get out of the normal side of the bed. You might find yourself getting out of that bed and go, oh, wait a second, I said today I'm going to get out of the other side. So you actually had to think about it. You had to actually think about it. Even driving, sometimes with driving, we arrive wherever we needed to arrive and go, did I actually drive through wherever I was supposed to? How did I get here? Because you did it so unconsciously that you didn't even have to think about it really. So, I'd rather have, and anger has its place, like you said. There are times when it's yet what I would be looking at with the anger as well is what triggered it. What triggered my anger?
In the sense that...
Yeah, what triggered my anger?
Because if you're angry, it's a sign that something is wrong not with you. Something that you disagree with. It's a sore point.
Yeah, and more often than not, we associate it with something being taken away from us. We think something's being taken away from us, right? So I need to look at that trigger and what it is. And then I can ask myself, but is actually something being taken away from me? Is it actually being taken away from me? Is my worthiness actually being taken away from me because this happened? Or because someone said something? Like even now, potentially as I'm speaking here, some people could be listening and going, what the hell is this guy talking about choosing our parents? What an idiot. Like
an hour ago.
Yeah, I know, but still, what is he talking about? Yeah, because if someone came halfway through and decided to come halfway through, now they got to go back. What is he talking about? But if they say that, I could get angry.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Yeah, I know what I'm talking about because I've studied this and I studied it. But in actual fact, are they actually taking anything away from me? They're not doing. It's harmless. They have their opinion. And it's not taking. So I think it's really important when we're looking at anger. What is triggering that anger? Because this is where we're going to go a little bit deeper, and we're going to start to recognize some of our beliefs. Because some of the beliefs we have, and again, over the course of your life, you've been taught a lot of stuff. You've been taught a lot of stuff by people. You've been taught by your parents. You've been taught by your teachers. You've been taught by society. You've been taught by the friends you surround yourself around. But just because you've been taught something
doesn't mean it's true.
Doesn't mean it's the truth. does not mean it's the truth just because you've been taught something. So if you're willing to look at your beliefs and potentially some of those limiting beliefs, there could be some beliefs you have that are limiting you, that are actually holding you back from actually moving forward in some aspects of your life. And when you start to get to the core of those beliefs, some of what those beliefs are, and more often than not, believe it or not, it boils down to a lot of self-doubt. People tend to self-doubt themselves because they don't think they're good enough. A lot of people don't think they're good enough, and they hold themselves back because of that. And this is where, and when they don't think they're good enough, now they're not worthy enough. So whether it's worthy enough to start my own business, worthy enough to be on a podcast, whether it's worthy enough to give my opinion in amongst friends or whatever it may be. And when we start to recognize this, now we can start to see how I can make the changes. Because just because you got angry at something, a lot of times you're angry at something. Even when let's say someone's angry at you and they're lashing out at you, more often than not, it's just projection. They're just projecting their insecurities onto you. It's what they're afraid of, not what you're afraid of. So if I'm getting angry at something and I'm angry and I have to look at myself and go, hey, what the hell's going on here? Wait a second. What has triggered this? And what are my insecurities that I'm attempting to project onto someone else?
What do you fear?
What do you fear? What are you actually scared of? Again, potentially coming back to what am I scared of that they're taking away from me?
Ken, we have a question from the audience.
We have a question from the audience?
We do.
Audio, awesome. I love that.
I'm not sure whether it's for you or me or
whatever.
Both. Not sure. So, Western society thinks life is hard.
Yeah.
Eastern society thinks more along life is hard to face, until you realize the real nature of your mind and how to be more mindful, present, joyful, flexible, detached. Not sure.
It's a statement.
It is.
It's a statement, and it is very, and it's exactly what we've been talking about. It's exactly what we've been talking to. Yeah, the tendency is for Western society to be, again, very attached to the outside world. So, it tells us, to be successful, you have to accomplish this, and you have to accomplish this, and you have to accomplish this. It's very much on the outside. The Eastern, as it's saying there, tends to go more inner. And the detachment was that. I believe even the Western is coming more closer to the Eastern, if you want to call it, and that, because fortunately, what we're talking about today, and mindset and wellness, it's more at the forefront nowadays. It is more at the forefront in the sense that information is available. Like even what I'm talking about here, like I am not reinventing the wheel. I'm saying stuff that other people have said.
Yes.
I might say it in a little bit of a different way and might resonate with someone. But I'm not reinventing the wheel. Like I said, sages have been talking about this inner wisdom and all of this stuff for thousands and thousands of years. Yet society, if you want to talk about society and how its effect can affect, and this is why awareness is so important. Because when we become aware, because at the end of the day, what you don't know about, you don't know about. What you don't know, you don't know.
For sure.
Right? You don't know, you don't know.
Eureka moment.
Right? Eureka moment, right? You don't know, you don't know. And like we said before, what you've been taught doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth. So get curious. Start asking. Yet we've tapped in society has taught us many things as well. Society tells us how we need to behave. Society tells us what a successful person looks like. Society tells us all of these things, and now we begin to want to emulate these things. But again, they're outside, And they're still perceptions.
Mhm.
They're still perceptions. They're not necessarily the truth. They're people's perception. Success is going to be different for so many people.
This is very much like feedback, because
Yeah.
I do have this kind of conversations when it comes. Um, People have opinions, people can give you feedback, and it doesn't mean that the feedback you receive it's neither good nor bad. I
Mhm.
mean, you have to sift through it,
Yeah.
and it's a skill to learn to sift through feedback that you receive. I think you need to do it because feedback that you receive is very subjective.
Of
So you
course.
have to make sure whether that aligns with your belief system and
Well,
values.
because when someone's giving you their feedback, remember, they're giving you their feedback through their perception
Definitely.
and what they know and what their beliefs are.
Mhm. So you have to see whether that's
So
that
you have to,
aligns.
yeah, of course, you need to evaluate that and you need to see, and potentially someone's, and again, you want to think about, so if someone's seeking help, for instance, they're going to want to seek help from someone potentially that they trust. I think that's very important that they trust that then they trust that they have their best interest at heart.
Yes.
Because if you want to look at society, people do have agendas, right? They're speaking in a certain way and they're believing in a certain way because they potentially might have an agenda that they want to, whatever it is. And that's okay, but it's simply their beliefs. And they can have it. I mean, what a wonderful world. Life is hard and the world is, there are people who have a perception that the world is a horrible place.
I don't agree with that personally.
Yeah, you don't agree with that. And neither do I. Neither do I. I think, I have a firm belief that the majority of people are really good people, kind-hearted people, people who want to help other people. Yet what does society do? It emphasizes, it focuses on those people who maybe are not. Now, again, I'm not saying that one person is better than the other.
Topic.
I know, but I'm not saying,
Yes,
but
yes.
it is and it isn't. Because I'm not saying that those people are better or not. So, because again, these
Yes,
are
yes.
perceptions, good people, bad people. What determines a bad person? Because a person, we could say that this person is a very unkind person, and this person was very unkind to me. And again, I would not condone that behavior, but it's just a behavior.
Yes.
It's not who they really are.
Might be.
Huh?
It might be.
It's not really who they are. It's a behavior. They're not kind, but why aren't they kind?
It might have been what they have decided.
More often than not, it's a cry for love.
It can be as well.
And maybe me delving a little further, and rather than just getting angry because that person wasn't kind to me, maybe I can say, this is a cry for love. Let me be kind to them, irrespective. It's okay. And let's see what happens. Because if I'm going to get angry because they weren't kind, I'm doing no different than they're doing. I'm doing no different than they're doing. I'm just going to anger. And anger is always anger. Doesn't matter if it's big anger, small anger, just like kindness. Kindness. There's no big kindness or small kindness. It's kindness. It's a frequency.
Yeah.
That's why a very small act of kindness can go a long way. And you wouldn't even know what an effect it had somewhere, I don't know, on the other side of the world. So, we really need to, so again, what determines, so that person wasn't kind. Yet, it gave me an opportunity, or anybody an opportunity, to actually respond in a different way to that unkindness and maybe reach out to that person. So where am I going with this? So that person who was unkind actually did me a huge favor because they gave me the opportunity to actually respond in a different way. So what does that mean? That person actually did a good thing by being unkind. Now, I'm not telling people to go and be unkind. I'm just talking about perception here. What makes that person a good or bad? Because we're only looking at perceptions. We're only looking at behaviors. That person can change that behavior. That's not who they are. That's just the behavior, and it can be changed.
It can be changed, but it's a decision. So if you decide to be kind to them, and they still decide to be unkind to you,
correct.
Then if it was me who the person is being unkind to, I would walk away.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course you would.
That's something that I would not accept.
Yes, absolutely.
For myself. So I can resonate with that. That listen, if you were unkind to me, I can. It doesn't mean that I will be unkind to you.
Yeah.
I think.
And now, what would your, and this is, again, we're going down a little bit of a path here, but now what's even more important, at an energy level now, how are you feeling about that person? Because if I'm feeling angry or aggravated at that person or whatever that may be, that is what you are feeling, and that is what you are transmitting out.
Well, I wouldn't feel angry at that point in time. I would be at peace, very much so. I've did my part.
Yeah. So and at an energetic level, and this is where it becomes very profound, even when it comes to meditation and all these things. At an energetic level, you can even send that person. Let's call them good vibes. Let's call them love, whatever you want. You could actually send that to that person at an energetic level. And it will still have an effect on that person if they're open to receiving it. And they still might not be open to receiving it. But that's okay. Like you said, you've done your part and that. But what a different world this would be. And if I came back even to the entrepreneurial world, what if we approached business from this perspective as well, that things weren't just transactional, that we started to look at entrepreneurs, the person across the table from me, as the same as me, and not attempting to have this one-up on the person or, dare I say, screw over the person so that, it's a win for me, but it's a loss for them. And I'm not saying that.
I don't think that's good business.
Yeah, exactly. And most entrepreneurs who do not look at business, I get it. But now we're taking it to an even deeper route, where even from an inner level, from a spiritual level as well, we're looking at life in general from this perspective, that no one is better or worse than you. No one is better. I'm not better than anybody, and no one's better than me, and no one's worse than me either. We're all the same. Really, at a spiritual level, at an energetic level, we'll use that, because we can call it whatever you want. Energy, source energy.
They usually mean the same thing.
Quantum field. You know what I call it? I call it the umami self.
I've heard you say this.
I call it the umami self. Umami in the food world, when you eat something that tastes so good, you don't have words to describe it. And that, your essence is that there's no words to describe who you truly are. So the definition of umami in the food world is the essence of deliciousness. The umami self is the essence of deliciousness of who you truly are. And I'll leave it at that.
That's nice. Ken, we're nearing the end.
You're kidding. We're at the end already?
Almost. I think we've been going for almost an hour and a half.
Holy mackerel.
So I'm going to summon the fishbowl, and I'm going to ask you to choose one of these questions.
Oh, yes.
All right?
You make it easy.
Well, it's not up for me to choose.
Make it easy. Who wrote these questions?
I said.
You wrote them. Yeah, so much for easy.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Okay, I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you.
Give me that 5 years.
I'm trusting my umami self to choose something that will serve everybody who's listening.
That's nice.
Do I read it or do you read it?
Yes, please. If you can read it out loud and answer the rapid fire question fashion.
Can you share a moment when you stepped out of your comfort zone and grew from it? Yeah. Oh man. One moment. Holy mackerel. One moment that comes to mind without a doubt was many years ago. I was a banker.
Okay.
I worked in a bank for 7 years, and we're going back. Okay, so I'm talking 1985 to 1992. And when in 1992 I decided I'm leaving the bank, that was, at the time, that was a big jump. That was a big jump because it was considered that I had a secure
The
job.
most
It
definitely.
was quite well paid. The hours were very good. And I was moving into a job that was going to have less pay. I moved into sales. It was going to have less basic pay, and I had to rely more on commission. I could make more money than I was making at the bank,
Yes.
but a big chunk of it would have to come from commission. So that was considered, and at the time, my daughter also was going to be born that year as well.
So
So that was
a
all
very
happening.
meaningful
Yeah.
year.
So it was, yeah. So that definitely was a time that I moved out of my comfort zone. When I decided to move completely out on my own as an entrepreneur and when I moved into retail, that's when I moved out completely 100% on my own. Because till I did that, I was working for someone. To move complete on my own, that was another time that I actually moved out of my comfort zone
Alright.
and was a huge growth spurt without a doubt. When I moved into that sales, like I said, I learned a ton there as well. That was huge. And if I were to go back even further, so I speak with this accent because I was born in Toronto, Canada. And when I moved to Malta, my parents are both Maltese. They decided to move. I was 14, so I didn't really have much of
Yeah.
a choice. Talk about changing comfort zones.
For sure.
Now, I was looking forward to moving here, don't get me wrong, because I had very good experience of Malta, because I used to come for vacations every couple of years and so on and so forth. At 14, I thought I was coming for a permanent vacation.
You did.
I was
You
I
did.
was I was an avid hockey player, ice hockey.
We don't have it here in Malta, unfortunately.
I moved to an island that doesn't have ice. So that was a
We
huge
wish
change.
at the moment to have ice.
And also, what really took me out of my comfort zone when we moved here was education. I went from an above average student in Canada to an average student here who had to be put back a year
Behind.
to be able to be in line
Mm.
and still was average. That was a huge talk about, dealing with worthiness, good enough, and all, but there were huge lessons. And I learned a big lesson at that time as well, talking about growing, to really just take the humble route. And what do I mean by that? I was one of two foreigners in this school that I went to. Potentially could have taken the cocky route, right? I'm one of two foreigners.
Yeah.
I did not choose that, thankfully. I think my parents did a good job. And I chose the humble, I want to make friends. Fortunately, true, I didn't have my hockey, but I still was a football player. Sports was, so I could make friends
Yes.
pretty good, right? And I went from I went from a co-ed school in Canada to an all-boys school.
Yeah.
I went from going to school dressed up whatever I wanted to be, jeans and a t-shirt,
Yeah.
to a school with a uniform and a polka dot tie. And and I was 14. So I went to an all-boys school. I was 14. There's some hormones running at 14, man. I was
For
like,
sure. You had wished to be in a co-ed school
I
at
was
that
like,
point in time.
where are the holy, this is not fair, right? So do a lot of growth, a lot of growth there. But, and I could probably mention so many other, and that's really important. I mean, that's how we grow, and
You
we're
mentioned
constantly
three,
doing it.
so I think that's
Yeah.
you've answered the question
Yeah.
thoroughly there.
Yeah. Because otherwise I'll keep going.
Ken, thank you for being here.
My absolute
It's
pleasure.
been a very good conversation. I didn't anticipate that it would go in this direction.
That's the beauty of it.
But I'm glad that we've touched upon certain topics, and you made me think. I mean, your playfulness in the way you speak and your optimism, I find them interesting. So thank you for sharing that with me and with the audience as well.
Hopefully by the end of it, some people will decide, you know what, life doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah, hopefully it does.
Yeah.
Life can be enjoyable.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I believe.
Thank you, Ken. Thank
My
you for being
pleasure.
here.
My absolute pleasure.